Hello there everyone, your fluffy armchair Admiral Latter is back with some more hot ship action. In today's episode, which marks also a first actual recorded episode in Alpha 5, which I'm not sure I have covered patch notes until that point when this video is released. Mostly because some of my life circumstances have changed. Now I live with my boyfriend, and in general I have much less time or time alone that I can spend recording videos. Hence why any bonus videos as alpha X patch or patch notes videos might not be released when new patch arrives, so I do apologize for that. Anyway, it is a first Alpha 5 video from me, and I have prepared something special, something that many, and I'm gonna repeat that, many of you were highly anticipating since beginning of this channel, I believe. And yes, in today's episode we are finally, and I'm gonna repeat that, finally going to cover Nelson class battleship. Developers have finally released appropriate parts. They are basically designated to serve as N3 class hull, which was exactly the hull that was used on Nelson. Some of the parts might look differently. Some of the elements of the ship that I managed to build may still look inappropriate. However, it is what it is. It is what I can do. So I hope that I did quite a good job in trying to at least build something that resembles to how those ships looked and somewhat maybe performed or had similar like build parameters. Anyway, let's get into the game window, shall we? So, just look at this beauty. Isn't she gorgeous? Yes, that is exactly what you've been waiting for. So, let's get on with the build, shall we? So, starting from armament, we have 9 16-inch guns mounted in 3 triple turrets at the very front of the ship, with turret B being in super firing position over 2 other turrets. It was quite unique design. It was, well, pretty much the first design of this kind. Later on it was copied by French Navy in her Dunkirk battleships and probably a couple other designs. I will try to cover such later date when we get access to quad barrel turrets, so I can actually build a French battleship. For now, however, we will focus on Nelson. Right, the rest of the armament comprised of a dozen of 6-inch guns mounted in 6 double turrets, 3 per each side of the ship. I've tried to actually recreate the design and placement of the turrets. However, in that case, I just couldn't install raised parapets for second turrets of this kind. I'm not sure about exact placement of another secondary turrets, which were originally 4.7-inch anti-air guns. In the game I used 5-inch single turrets, and there were 6 of them. I know that there was a pair of such guns at the very back of the ship. However, I'm not sure about placement of remaining 4 turrets, so I just placed them where I could fit them. On top of that, there was also a small caliber single 1.5-inch turrets, I believe. In my design, I just used 2-inch guns because they are so ineffective that they won't make any difference anyway. So there is additional 8 2-inch guns across the superstructure. And finally, the last element of armament of this magnificent ship are underwater torpedo tubes. There is just a pair of them, one per each side of the ship, installed underwater, pretty much amidships. And that's it if it comes to armament of that beautiful and magnificent ship. When it comes to general parameters, the ship could achieve, well, it was designed to achieve 23 knots of speed. In fact, during sea trials, I think both HMS Nelson and Rodney managed to achieve just short of 24 knots, in fact. However, I tried to stick with the design speed in that regard. Since Alpha 5 patch, we are no longer able to modify range slider during missions. However, I'm not in a mission, it's a custom battle. So I can easily modify range slider, not that it matters to me, so I left it at medium to simulate that the ship in fact had some sort of a range. It was powered by oil-fueled boilers, geared steam turbines to be exact. I used induced boilers in order to get some sort of engine efficiency. I'm not sure about auxiliary engines. I couldn't find any information. I just put one of them, like the most basic one, so that if we get our engine damaged, the ship will remain somewhat operational. In fact, auxiliary engines were not a new design when Nelson was released. It was 1927 when she was commissioned. So there was plenty of time for constructors to actually design such solutions. I can even upgrade that to auxiliary diesel engine to give a bit of an upgrade in place. I also used enhanced propeller shafts just because I still got some space. I can either upgrade them to shaft 2, not that it makes a lot of a difference in this particular case. Anyway, I couldn't find exact information, so pretty much any that will suit our needs will do in that regard. When it comes to armor, the armor scheme was somewhat revolutionary, or it was like unusual for ships of that period. It was some sort of maybe British experiment, whatever. They used crop cemented armor, but because of the entirety of design of the ship, obviously armored citadel was moved slightly to the back. It was shortened, and technically armor scheme was kind of like complicated. The game can't simulate such armor scheme. So what I did is I just used crap cemented armor. I've set belts for 14-inch, which is historically accurate. However, the game simulates belt from like in middle part of the ship, which is kind of problematic because Nelson didn't had entirety like of midships covered in armor belt because there was no such need. Pretty much like reinforced armor belt covered mostly like middle small parts of midships, extending slightly towards the turrets or magazines, and covering engines with slightly smaller plates or thinner plates. When it comes to belt extended, it's again it's obviously the belt somewhat extended towards fore and aft of the ship. However, it's composed of different type of armor. It was not croup cemented armor. It was like armored plates, and it varied in thickness, starting from like 4-inch up to I think it was 11-inch in thickness in various parts of fore and aft of the ship. So I just took all the values and got pretty much average out of them, which ended up being 8.5-inch in average on fore and aft, which means that the ship will be a little bit more armored than it should be. When it comes to deck, in the thickest part, it had around 6.25-inch of armor. In the thinnest part of the deck armor, it had 4.25-inch of armor. Conning tower was protected by 14-inch of armor, and turret faces were protected by 16-inch of armor, with sides and the back going down to I think it was 9-inch, with turret top being massively protected by 7.3-inch of armor. I couldn't find much information about secondaries, but usually secondaries in that period were protected by like 1 up to 3-inch of armor. I think when I was covering Bismarck, I mentioned that she had like quite revolutionary secondary armor protection, and it was somewhere around 3 or 3.5-inch. So I just tried to stick like within those lower limits and set secondary armor plates to 2-inch. Right, when it comes to torpedoes, which I forgot to mention, originally Nelson was equipped with 24.5-inch torpedoes. However, the biggest ones I can equip on our design are 22-inch, so that's what we are using today. And obviously, Citadel scheme was just armored Citadel, so it was thickest or thicker in various places where it was strategically needed. When it comes to torpedo protection, Nelson was equipped with double hull bottom, supported by anti-float system, which comprised of various compartments that could be balanced and help ship to retain balance after being hit, supported by a torpedo bulge. So that is from my knowledge, and that's what we are using. So torpedo heads on our ship will be very, very dangerous. I'm not going to lie. It will be really, really dangerous. Obviously, when it comes to propellant, typical British propellant, cordite or cordite 2 in this case, which replaced cordite 1 in, I think it was 1895 or something like that. When I remember, if I remember correctly, my previous researches about other British designs that I covered in my series. So that's what we are going to use in this battle. I went for stereoscopic rangefinder 5, which was the biggest one that I can use. I'm not sure how much accurate that will be in regards to the history. I tried to stick with more or less 1930s builds of HMS Nelson as much as possible, obviously, because the ship went through some modernizations throughout her lifetime, so at least HMS Nelson did. Rodney didn't have that luck, and she remained more or less a stock version of the ship that was released around 1927, 1928. I can't remember exact commissioning date of HMS Rodney. Anyway, I just went for stereoscopic rangefinder 5, which will give us some extra bonuses at a long range. I went for improved radio telegraph. I'm not sure what kind of communication was used, if it was super revolutionary. None of the materials that I used to research, and it was mostly Wikipedia, I'm not gonna lie, mentioned about any superior electronic equipment on board of Nelson class battleships, so we haven't put any. We don't use radar for this build, and hopefully I'm not going to regret that during this battle. I'm not gonna lie. Right, and that's pretty much it when it comes to build of that ship. We are slightly heavier than original design. Original design was not the most balanced one as well, which also provided some of the downsides to it. However, yeah, I'm really worried that weight offset that we are generating will prove itself to be a really bad idea for us. Anyway, we will give it a shot. We will see if that ship will perform well. In this battle, we will be facing against a single German battleship of like 1927 design as well. So we will probably see some early Bismarck construction, perhaps. So it will be quite interesting. So before we begin this battle, I would like to remind you that if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, and it makes me a bit more motivated to see that number of people that would like to regularly watch and follow my content. Right. Also, when you subscribe, hit that bell button to be notified every time I upload a new video, every time I upload maybe a bonus video perhaps. It might happen. And don't forget to share your comments down below. I'm really happy to see your thoughts about this series, videos, any mistakes, any feedback that you have about the content I create. Right, so without any further ado, let's begin the battle. And here we are, the battle has loaded, we are ready to start it. So, the enemy is north of us, so we will just turn to the north. we are not able to fire all 3 guns facing forwards, so we need to approach our target at a slight angle if we want to eventually be able to hit the enemy with all 9 of our guns. Also, some of the visuals were upgraded in Alpha 5. There's also quite a few new features. I haven't went through entire patch notes at this point yet, so I can't provide you with fully accurate info reading from the patch notes because I'm not going to lie, I am not fully prepared for that at this point. However, what developers claimed to upgrade in that regard is the fact that right now when you fire a salvo and it spreads around, the shells have their own collision detection system. So when they collide with a ship that you were not intending to hit, they will in fact damage it, and they will cause damage as they should. So right now it is also a viable tactic to aim at the ships that are part of the large cluster, because even though you won't hit the ship that you are aiming for, you might in fact hit a ship that you were not aiming for and accidentally hit her. There is also some sort of changes to critical hits. So they should happen in different intervals with some different chances to occur to match a little bit more the historical values. So depending on what the statistics shown, there might be a little bit less detonations caused by shells, unless it's a nation specific thing, which basically means that I'm right now sailing a big powder keg with no armor. Who knows? Anyway, let's focus on the battle. As you probably noticed, enemy is already actively firing at my ship. Unfortunately, due to lack of radar that I haven't equipped on Nelson, we are not able to retaliate at this point. I will turn on the time compression so I can get some more distance. Okay, we finally managed to find enemy ship. As you can see, only first 2 of our turrets are able to fire at this point. I need to cut the distance before I can turn more to the broadside. I can slightly reduce the time compression to ×2, so we won't drag the battle too long, and we won't make it too short as well. So as we are exchanging blows with German battleship that is currently about 17 kilometers away from us, we managed to score first hit, which is a great success to us. Right, so speaking about short history of HMS Nelson. So we already know that she was commissioned in 1927. And after she was commissioned, she took part in various events. I won't be going deep into history because it's not super exciting what was well, what this ship was doing before outbreak of a Second World War II. However, since the outbreak of Second World War, obviously ship initially was issued in order to prevent German blockade runners from actually gaining access to the Atlantic. However, as you've probably noticed, she's not the fastest vessel. So eventually this plan was abandoned later on, quite soon to be fact, and ship became pretty much part of like a convoy escort, and she was assigned many escort mission. In 1941, she was transferred to, or it was actually mid 1941. It was July, I think. She was transferred to Mediterranean Sea, where again she was mostly doing convoy escort missions. She took part in a couple of missions in relation to shore bombardment. However, that I think happened after her refit, because she happened to be damaged by Italian Air Force during one of her missions, and ended up in a dry dock for repairs for a period of about 6 or 7 months. After she returned, she was again assigned to Mediterranean theater, and she took part in again some short bombardment missions, leading to eventual conquer of Italy. After she finished with Mediterranean Sea in, I think it was somewhere in 1943, she was again transferred to a home fleet. I can't remember what exactly happened there, but I know that she also took part in Normandy landing in 1944. So she was bombarding a shore for that event. However, shortly after landing in Normandy, she was damaged heavily and went for repairs. This time, she was sent to America and didn't return to active service until 1945. Pretty much, she returned very shortly after end of Second World War, so she didn't saw much action. Eventually, after war, she was slightly modernized and became a flagship for a period of 5 or 6 months. In 1946, I believe, she was replaced by King George V in the role of a flagship, and became a training ship for Royal Navy, just to be decommissioned and scrapped in 1948. So Nelson had some interesting events in her history. Obviously, during her service in the Eastern Fleet, I think. I just don't want to be wrong in this one. Eventually, she at some point took part in chase after Bismarck, and that's one of the interesting events in her history, and one of the potential achievement, because it's still unconfirmed if that's an actual thing. So while chasing after Bismarck when she was badly damaged, Nelson managed to fire a pair of her torpedoes, and she claims that she actually scored a hit. So if that is actually the truth, Nelson would be the only one ship in history to actually successfully perform a torpedo attack over another battleship. However, it is still unconfirmed if that is actual truth. And that's pretty much it when it comes to special achievements that I remember about HMS Nelson. She was indeed a fine ship. She had some struggles. She definitely wasn't the easiest ship to navigate. However, there were various opinions about that. Obviously, because of her design, she was very maneuverable when the waters were calm. However, in slightly stormy and windy weather, it was very dependent on her position against the wind, and it was in fact a bit tricky. However, if a commander of the ship took that into consideration, at least active commanders that served on HMS Nelson claimed that the ship was very maneuverable in fact, but certain limitations and things to avoid needed to be considered. Anyway, let's now focus on the battle itself, shall we? So we are now very close to enemy. In fact, we managed to reduce our distance down to 6.3 kilometers off the target. We exchanged blows between our secondary guns. I am trying to stay at an angle. However, enemy is equipped by torpedoes, which is going to force me to turn hard towards starboard side to avoid any incoming torpedoes. I haven't fired any of my torpedoes. I believe I'm not in a torpedo range at the moment. However, I need to verify that information. Is that circle marked? 2-inch. Yeah, I am within torpedo range. However, I haven't set my torpedoes for aggressive. Right, let's look a little bit at the visuals, shall we? There are some upgrades to visuals in this patch. So let's see our German adversary. Oh, that is absolutely beautiful, but it's also very loud. So we almost hit side of enemy battleship. Right, let's talk a little bit about new visuals, shall we? As you probably noticed, secondary guns on that German battleship looks pretty German, isn't it? Yes, that is part of new visuals, in fact. Developers have improved that visual aspect, and now different nations will have different style of guns and turrets, as long as they are already in the game and as long as they are designed. So for now, the biggest variation and difference will be between Imperial Japan and other nations, because obviously those are the most significant differences between various nations. However, that doesn't mean that other nations doesn't get any unique look. Some of the guns might be too similar or inaccurate to the style that was actually used in that historical period. However, they are much more accurate than they were in Alpha 4. So that is really nice. When it comes to visual damage models, I don't see too much of a difference. I think we are still at Alpha 4 stage. I might be wrong, some things might have improved. However, improvement is just slight. Right. Anyway, we are in a short range encounter with Saxon. We managed to damage her engines. We managed to dodge her torpedo attack. However, there is another torpedo attack incoming. I will switch my torpedoes to aggressive in hope that I will be able to fire them soon and hopefully score a hit. At least I do hope for that. Anyway, enemy is about to fire their torpedoes, which will definitely force me to turn hard towards port side. We managed to damage something. We damaged engine and we damaged rudder. We caused flooding. Oh dear, oh dear. Unfortunately, we got hit really bad. We showed too much broadside at the wrong range. Enemy just fired their torpedoes, so I need to turn really hard towards port side. I'm not going to lie, with 2 of my engines damaged at this point, flooding and really heavy structural damage, I see very small chances to actually win this battle. I am about to get hit by at least one of those torpedoes. And that is ammo detonation. Unfortunately, that is another new feature in Alpha 5 patch. Right now, a proper torpedo hit of a higher caliber can actually cause an ammunition to detonate. So unfortunately, this time I wasn't successful in my efforts in my battle. However, I hope you still enjoyed it. I hope you liked today's episode. And thank you very much for watching. If you indeed liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you want to get informed about my new uploads, hit that notification bell button and don't forget to share your comments down below. Have a great day and see you all later. Later. Out.